I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who craves something outside her marriage, but here I am, telling a story I never imagined living. Jason and I have been married 5 years. We met young, fell hard, and made all the promises people do when they're still full of hope. But somewhere along the way it changed. He changed. Or maybe I did. I don't know. What I do know is that I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. He used to text me sweet things during lunch. Now it's silence. He used to light up when I walked in the room. Lately it's like I'm furniture, useful but unnoticed. I tried. I really did. I cooked dinners. I wore that perfume he liked. I even brought up how I was feeling twice. Both times ended with him saying he was tired or stressed from work. So I stopped asking. I stopped trying to be seen. You don't realize how heavy loneliness is until you've carried it long enough. I didn't want someone else. I just wanted to be wanted again. Daniel started coming around once a month, sometimes more. He and Jason were college buddies, bonded over gaming and whiskey. He was always polite, always kind. But then he started noticing little things. My haircut, my earrings, the color of my dress. I caught him looking at me one night, not in a creepy way but in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I felt something stir in me. I brushed it off, convinced myself I was imagining it, projecting what I wished Jason would do. But the seed had been planted. Every time Daniel came over, I found myself dressing a little nicer, checking the mirror a little longer. He never crossed any lines. Neither did I. But we danced on the edge of something we both refused to name. After one of their late-night game sessions, Jason fell asleep on the couch. I was cleaning up when Daniel came into the kitchen. We talked. About nothing and everything. There was a moment, long silence, soft smile, his hand brushing mine. He didn't lean in. Neither did I. But the air between us thickened. He left that night, and I lay in bed beside my husband who hadn't touched me in weeks, wide awake with guilt and a strange kind of ache. I told myself I was loyal, that nothing happened, but deep down something already had. The emotional line had blurred. And when you start justifying your thoughts, it's only a matter of time before they turn into actions. I started waiting for Daniel's messages more than my husband's attention. That should have been the warning sign. But I wasn't listening to warnings anymore. I was listening to my own need to feel seen, wanted, alive. That's how it started. Not with a kiss, not with a touch, but with a look I hadn't seen in years. It didn't take long before Daniel and I were talking regularly. It started with harmless texts, memes, song recommendations, random thoughts. But soon it shifted. Late-night conversations about how tired I felt, how unseen I was. He never judged. He just listened. And with every reply, I felt more drawn to him. Jason, meanwhile, barely noticed. His eyes stayed glued to his screen. His words clipped and mechanical. I could have been anyone sitting beside him. That quiet pushed me further into conversations I shouldn't have been having. Daniel never pushed. He never flirted directly. But his presence was steady, warm, and consistent. The kind of presence I missed. One night, after Jason bailed on our anniversary dinner claiming a last-minute deadline, I sat in the kitchen alone, candles still burning. I texted Daniel without thinking. He replied immediately, asking if I was okay. I told him the truth for the first time. I wasn't. I hadn't been for a long time. He didn't offer solutions. He just said, "You deserve more than this." That line didn't feel like comfort. Felt like an invitation. A week later, Jason was out of town for a conference. I wasn't planning anything. I really wasn't. But Daniel came over to grab a charger he'd forgotten during his last visit. I should have said no. But I didn't. I told myself it was casual. Just a quick visit. He walked in, and the silence felt different. Heavy. We talked in low voices, as if we were already keeping a secret. I poured wine. We sat too close. The conversation turned personal. I mentioned how empty I'd been feeling. He looked at me with concern that felt too intimate. Then he touched my hand. It was gentle, hesitant. But it sent a jolt through me. I looked at him, and there was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. I could have pulled away. I didn't. He leaned in slowly. I let him. The kiss was soft, almost questioning, like he was giving me a chance to stop him. I didn't take it. It didn't feel rushed. It felt inevitable. My mind went quiet for the first time in months. We didn't talk much afterward. The guilt settled in fast, but it was layered with relief, even warmth. I didn't regret it. Not in that moment. I had missed being touched, being wanted, being looked at like I mattered. The justifications were already forming in my head. Jason's neglect, my efforts, the emotional abandonment. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I was just trying to feel something real again. Daniel left before dawn. I lay in bed afterward, staring at the ceiling, heart still racing, trying to make sense of what I'd done. It wasn't love, but it wasn't meaningless either. It was something in between, messy, selfish, necessary. I knew this wasn't just a one-time mistake. This was the beginning of a secret I wasn't ready to face. But I also knew I wouldn't stop. Not yet. The morning felt still, almost quiet enough to convince me it hadn't happened. I woke up alone, the sheets cold where Daniel had been hours before. I wrapped myself in my towel, trying to shake the fog in my head. I told myself it was done. A mistake that wouldn't be repeated. Just something I'd bury. I turned on the shower, needing to feel clean again. But as the water hit my back, I heard the front door unlock. My heart froze. Jason wasn't supposed to be back until that evening. I hadn't planned for this moment. I stood still, water pouring over me, ears straining. Then the bathroom door opened. He sounded confused, casual at first. "Why's Daniel's car outside?" The air in my lungs disappeared. I couldn't answer fast enough. My voice cracked when I said he dropped something off and must have forgotten it. He didn't respond. The door shut again. I stood there, breath shallow, already spiraling. I got out quickly, barely drying off. My hands shook as I wrapped the towel tighter and stepped into the hallway. The house was too quiet. I walked into the living room and saw him sitting on the couch, holding Daniel's hoodie. 2 wine glasses still on the table. The look on his face wasn't rage. It was worse, numbness. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. "Tell me what's going on." I tried to lie. Said Daniel stopped by briefly, that nothing happened. But even as the words left my mouth, I could feel them falling apart. Jason didn't press. He didn't need to. The evidence was all there. I broke down. I told him I didn't plan it. That I was lonely. That I felt forgotten. That it was a moment I couldn't undo. He didn't yell. He didn't ask questions. He just listened, jaw tight, eyes glossy. Then he stood up. "You could have just told me you were unhappy," he said quietly. "You could have said something before doing this." I had said something. I had begged for him to see me. But I didn't argue. I didn't defend it anymore. I just stood there, ashamed, pathetic, still clinging to a towel as my marriage cracked open in front of me. He walked out without slamming the door. That silence hurt more than shouting ever could. I didn't chase him. What could I say that would undo any of it? I sat on the floor for what felt like hours, unable to move, every second stretching with guilt. My mind kept replaying his voice, his face, the way he looked at me like he didn't know me anymore. And maybe he didn't. Maybe I didn't even know myself. I thought crossing the line with Daniel was the hardest part. But it wasn't. It was this. The unraveling. The realization that a few minutes of feeling wanted could cost me everything I once believed was worth protecting.